I'm excited to talk Sweet 16 basketball tonight. I got the coaches in the green room waiting to come on with me. I got MVCC boys men's basketball coach, Coach Fuller's going to join us. You'll remember I had him on this past weekend on the Mohawk Valley Sportswatch, fresh off a national championship. I got friend of the show. This is the first time he's been on the podcast, but he's been on with us on the radio for a long time. Coach Pasiak's going to jump on in just a minute. Pete Pagliaro, Coach Pags from the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch. He's going to jump on with us as well. I'm not sure if we're going to have Coach Medicis or not, but Coach is going to jump on. We're going to get the coach's thoughts from the first weekend. We'll talk about the Sweet 16 games coming up this week. And then at the very end, make sure to stay tuned. We'll get into our predictions and much more. So stay tuned. We'll be right back here on The Rock Pile. So welcome back, and without further ado, let's bring the coaches on. They've been waiting patiently here tonight, so let's bring them on one by one. There's Coach Pasiak right there. What's up, coaches? What's going on tonight?
What's going on, gentlemen?
Little lull in the action.
I know. I'm really excited. I got my Gonzaga shirt on. I'm a little disappointed that I thought they were. I don't think they were seated appropriately, but. It was a great game to watch last week, but I'm thankful to have you guys on. Coach Fuller back from the weekend. We talked on the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch, and this is Pags' first time on with us in a long time.
Long time. I finally back.
Yep. So Pags, welcome, and Coach P, you've been on the radio with us for a while, and this is the first time on the podcast. So welcome back.
Yeah, good to be on with you guys. Got to get the technology figured out and everything. So congratulations to Harley on a national title. I was telling you guys before we got on that I remember him as a player at Cobleskill when I was coaching in Onondaga back in the day.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I gotta say kudos to that too. I'm an MV grad, so it was nice to see a national champion come out of MV like that, and especially for basketball, man. It's a favorite sport. So go Hawks.
Love to see the Mohawk alum. Love to see it. That's awesome.
Yes.
So, guys, I don't know if we're going to have Coach Medicis may jump on in a little bit. He's trying to get to the kids down for bed. So if he jumps on, great. We'll dive in with him as well. But, I want to get your guys' thoughts because I'm a sports radio junkie. And so far, after the weekend and yesterday and today, all I hear on the radio is there's no true Cinderella in this Sweet 16. And some people are saying it's not great for the tournament. Others are saying the Blue Bloods are in it. And talking about the NIL where you're not getting the mid-majors like the Valparaisos that would get the kids to stay for 4 years that can compete with, the Blue Bloods. But I want to just get your early thoughts on the opening, couple rounds and what your guys' thoughts were on the NIL and where we're at with no Cinderella. And don't tell me Arkansas is a Cinderella with John Calipari. But we'll get into that and more. So, Pags, I'm going to open up to you. What were your early thoughts?
Well, to me, it's March Madness, right? There's whenever Thursday comes on and there's all those games on, and you get to watch all those games. To me, that's exciting. I mean, it brings me back to when I was a kid, skipping school on Thursday and Friday to watch those games. Yes, it was a lot more chalk this time around, but I think if you look at it now, we all like to see the Cinderella and the big shots, and that's what March Madness is. But I think you're going to see some really good matchups this coming week, and it's because of the chalk. I think because of the teams that won this week, now you're seeing those matchups. Because a lot of times those Cinderella teams, once in a while you'll see that 15 seed who makes a run. But for the most part, after that second round, when they get to the Sweet 16, then you start seeing the teams that really are dominant win those games. So I think you're going to see better games this weekend, so sooner. So to me, it's still exciting. It hasn't been as exciting. But it's March Madness. You can't go wrong.
Coach P, what'd you think? What were your thoughts?
Well, I think you hit on it a little bit with, I've seen a couple things where the death of the mid-major Cinderella, and I think that's a direct reflection of the transfer portal and the NIL money and whatnot. And to the point you alluded to, like it used to be like the great equalizer would be you would see the power conference teams that had the NBA draft picks, the one and done, the 1 and 2 year guys, and the equalizer was the mid majors, usually with good guard play and experienced veteran roster that had been together. Those things kind of neutralized one another, which led to some great games and some great upsets. And, this go around, you see 16 teams out of, Power Four conferences. I think even, I had the Johnnies going to the national championship game. Great pick that turned out to be. But, I think even it's going to be very interesting going forward for a conference like the Big East that, like right now with the structure, they can't keep up with the Power Four teams financially, but they're going to have a little bit of an equalizer, which maybe we'll get into later with this NCAA settlement. And without major conference football, they'll be able to direct some money to basketball that maybe, the power conferences won't. So, that landscape will be interesting going forward. But for right now, it's certainly, money talks.
And Coach, you mentioned that the 4 power conferences. I mean, 7 SEC teams. I mean, so that shows you where the money, where the money comes in, right?
Yeah, I really had an issue, 14 teams from one conference. My thing is, I don't care how good your league is. If you can't finish in the top half of your league, you got no business plan for a national title, in my opinion, unless you manage to, to get there by winning your conference tournament. But that's almost a quarter of the field from one conference. That's a bit much, I think.
Harley, what'd you think?
I think even with the NIL, obviously the NCAA tournament, they have that sneaky little thing they do every year where they create their own storylines within the tournament. You see McNeese State with playing against Clemson, and Will Wade was the manager there, and he's involved in that job. And you have the Dukes who played against Baylor, and their starting point guard is there. Is coming back from that team, and they're still doing a good job with those storylines and without kind of those Cinderella teams, but. I like, obviously, Calipari, and Bill Self in that first round. And then, obviously Patino. I'm a big Patino guy myself. I had the Johnnies going all the way to the Final Four as well. So, there's still those storylines. But like you guys said, and you alluded to earlier, there's so many good matchups in this Sweet 16. Mark Pope, how good a coach is he right now? How he has those guys playing so versatile, shooting the basketball, kind of a different style. Just even some of the guys you see him recruiting right now. For next year, it's like that's not a typical Kentucky guy, but he's doing it his way. So it's kind of interesting seeing him, navigate through this. But I do like the Calipari situation too. It's kind of he plays it so well in the media, but it's so interesting hearing him talk about it and how he's talking about just taking it one game at a time. Typical coach talk, but it's like he loves having the ability to come out there year one, guns blazing and kind of make a statement. So. A lot of really good matchups. I'm excited to see my biggest one, in this Sweet 16 right now is that Florida and Maryland matchup. I think is going to be interesting because, Maryland was, you're one possession away and that momentum, that you get from a shot like that, at the end of a game can usually propel teams through a round or two, regardless of the level. But obviously the NCAA tournament momentum is king. So.
I look at the coaches and we'll get into the games here in just a minute, but, I get into the coaches and Harley, you mentioned, some of the guys, but I look at the pressure that Calipari had at Kentucky, and basically, I know he left on his own, but we all know that he was probably pushed out of there. And you look at, the success. He started 0-5, at Arkansas. He's won a great run. They're getting healthy at the right time. And then you look at the pressure that Mark Pope's had filling in for Calipari. That Kentucky hadn't been to the second weekend in, I think, 5-6 years, maybe even longer than that. And then you look at Chris Beard, who's a guy who has gotten in a little trouble, in the past, but all the guy does is win games. So I love the coaches in this thing. You still got Tom Izzo there. We'll get into that matchup. I think is good. The Maryland, a lot of good matchups.
Can't forget Bruce Pearl at Auburn, right?
Yep, you got Bruce Pearl at Auburn, and then you see, you mentioned the Will Wade who accepts the NC State job in the middle of the tournament while his team's still playing. And I just look at these guys that they got themselves in trouble, and here they are landing big jobs and taking these teams deep. So I love the coaching matchups in these, but I think these guys are all good coaches to get to this weekend. So I'm excited. And why don't we start in the South, guys? And I want to just kind of pull these things up here and we'll get into it. So in the South, the Auburn-Michigan game, Michigan right now, I got the lines up here because we'll pick the games at the end. I think the job, again, these coaches have all done, great jobs. I think what Dusty May's done, and you guys can speak to it better than I can from the basketball side, but he starts 2 7-footers. And the first thing I think of, and maybe you guys can explain this to me, is, when you start 2 7-footers, and with the way basketball is now with these these driving handoffs, the up and down, we're shooting threes, getting your 7-footers, you got to get out in transition and run the floor. How are they doing it with the two big guys? Coach P, I'll start with you. I mean, how does he do it with 2 7-footers?
Well, I think he's a guy who's always, even before coming to Michigan, he's always a guy who's been a little bit creative, as far as maximizing his personnel. And there's something to be said for kind of swimming against the flow and playing in a little different way with a little bit different type of lineup than, the trend in basketball has been to get smaller and space, space and kick. And, the game's all about the analytics and, shooting the three and whatnot and getting up and down the floor. But I mean, he's got some, obviously a lot of mileage out of playing a little bigger. And now that said, they were like the trendy pick to get knocked off early.
Yep.
And really almost did in the first round by UC San Diego. I think they got their work cut out this round, though. Auburn's good. I would be, I think this could be the end of the road for Michigan this round.
Yeah, and it's funny because you look at a year ago, this team was 8-24 a year ago, and again, the transfer portal. I mean, some of the guys they mentioned, I know he had a couple. The big guy came from FAU with them. They mentioned like 3 or 4 of those players that are playing in the Sweet 16, and I just go back and say, how good was that FAU team that he had it when he was there that took them to the Final Four? And I think that team could have won a national championship, but they were 8-24 a year ago, and here they are. I picked them to lose the first game for sure. Was a 10-seeded UC, the Tritons?
Tritons, yeah.
The Tritons, I had them losing that game. But again, I think the job that he's done, I mean, I think their end's going to run here. I think Auburn's a really tough matchup for him, but, I think it'll be fun to see. I think Auburn's peaking at the right time. And Harley, I'll ask you this, but Auburn at the end of the season, they lost 3 of the last 4 games. They limped into, March Madness, but, I think they're playing well at the right time.
Yeah, there's just so many talented pieces on that team. They probably, in my opinion, have the highest ceiling of anybody in this tournament when they're, outside of maybe Duke when, Cooper Flagg's healthy, obviously now. But, Janai Broom, that Pettiford, Tahad Pettiford, those 2 guys, I think if you're having a draft with all the players in the NCAA tournament, most of the coaches are going to go towards Janai Broom and obviously the experience that he has, but just so versatile. And Pettiford, they got 5 stars coming off the bench on that team. There's just so much talent. And obviously they stumbled, but as you guys know well, that sometimes those hiccups along the way can kind of propel you. You learn a little bit more in those losses than you do in any of those wins when things get covered up. But I definitely like Auburn in this game. But just to kind of touch on your Michigan, with Danny Wolf and he had the big there, Vlad Golden, with him at Florida Atlantic too. I mean, they're setting ball screens with 7-footer to 7-footer, and they're just hitting the roll every time. Like, how do you even guard that? So, if we learned anything with Dusty May is he's creative enough to find a way to give himself an opportunity in this game, regardless, of how talented Auburn is. But, Auburn shoots a ton of threes too, so they have the ability to shoot themselves out of a game as well. They get a little bit chaotic at times, and typically their talent just overwhelms people, but Dusty May teams play the right way. So, that's why I think it gives them a chance. I still think it's a 2 or 3 possession game at the end.
Yeah, I actually thought, the big thing to me was to see Auburn, because I thought they really struggled late in the year. I mean, the 3 out of 4 games that they lost, they played really good teams. But defensively was the question for me. How well can they defend? They rebound the hell out of the ball. And I think right now they are playing really well. So Bruce Pearl's teams are always tough. I'm a Bruce Pearl guy. I'd love to see Bruce Pearl get to a Final Four and have a chance to win a national title. But it seems to me that every year we say the same thing about his teams. They always play well, and then they get into March Madness and they stumble. They run into somebody, and I don't know if Michigan's going to be able to get them, but it should be a really good game. A lot of good matchups in all these regions. Pags, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think Auburn obviously has more weapons. I think they'll contend with the size. I mean, they got that Dylan Cardwell and that Broom kid that you mentioned.
Yep.
But I think one of the things that too is that Michigan is really turnover prone. So I think what you're going to see from Auburn is they're going to try to push the guards to try to make plays, and then if Michigan turns the ball over, I think it's going to be a lot harder for them to win this game. So I think Auburn's going to beat them. But I think you're maybe going to see them try to push Michigan towards those turnovers that they've been prone for all season long.
Yeah, the other one, guys, in the South is I think it's going to be another good game. They're both really hard nosed. They play good defense. They both rebound the ball. That's Michigan State, Ole Miss. I won't lie to you guys. I didn't have Ole Miss getting through into this game. I had them losing. I forget who they had in the first game, but I had them losing that 6-11 game right out of the gate. So, what's your guys' thoughts, Coach P? What do you think?
I think, Ole Miss has been, I thought they'd lose to Carolina. I'm with you there.
Yep.
Carolina was a team that, all the abuse they took, I thought they'd get a round or two in. But the thing that really impressed me the other day, I thought Iowa State was a sneaky good team, and they really, Ole Miss, that win over Iowa State was, to me, one of the more impressive wins anybody's put on the board this tournament. So it's a team that, I think they're under the radar, and a lot of people thought they'd be out early, but I think they're a team that seems to be peaking and playing their best basketball the first couple of rounds. They're a low turnover team, which is going to keep them in games. And I didn't expect them to be here right now, so they're playing a little bit with house money. I think they got a reasonably good shot against Michigan State.
Harley, I think that one of the things Michigan State does well, they rebound the basketball and they play relentless on defense. But, one of the things with Ole Miss, the front line's not very big for Ole Miss. So they're going to have to make shots and get out and transition and run. But is Ole Miss going to be able to keep up with Michigan State? Is this a bad matchup for them?
I think that the tempo is going to be really important for them. But, Ole Miss can get up and down the floor and score it too. But you saw Michigan State kind of in those first rounds. When they get out in transition, they can pitch ahead and they start getting their 6-7 athletes flying all over the place. It's not a matchup that most teams can put up with. But, every single Tom Izzo team, is gritty, tough, physical. They're not going to give a game away to anybody. If Ole Miss wins, it's going to be because they take it. But I will say with Ole Miss, I like the Sean Padula, the guard from the Virginia Tech transfer. He's just so tough. You see a little bit more edginess to him, I think, when he's on Ole Miss and he was on Virginia Tech, which I get a kick out of watching with him. He's talking a little bit more. He's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. But I think having those veteran guards in the tournament will be interesting. But I will say, I think it was Jace Richardson that Jason Richardson signed for Michigan State. It shows how tough and gritty Michigan State is. For him to have a bad game, scoring wise in that game, and then still be able to overcome it. I think that shows kind of, you could talk, everybody says the word culture, but, Michigan State's culture is what it is. There's just someone else is going to step up. And, Izzo seems to always get a couple of those 5-star guys to go with all the gritty physical guys that he always has to give himself a chance. So I think the house money for me, I would take Michigan State. I think just because Izzo, I think, is going to find a way to get it done. But Beard's been unbelievable. What a second coming for him, after that situation.
Well, I was on here a couple of weeks ago, and an interesting stat first before I get into my take here, but an interesting stat I thought was that there's been no number 2 seed that's made it to the Final Four that started the year outside of the preseason top 25. Michigan State was outside of the top 25, and they're a 2 seed, so they're going to have to get through history here, which I thought was an interesting stat line because I forgot that Michigan State wasn't ranked to start the year. So, but I want to stay on the Chris Beard thing just for a minute. I was on here a couple weekends ago and I said, and I don't know what you guys think about Beard. I'm not a huge Beard guy, but the guy can coach. I said, if I was Indiana, I would have made 3 phone calls. One was to Brad Stevens, who that wasn't happening. The second one for me would have been to Steve Alford. And there was a bunch of takes on the radio why Steve Alford wasn't asked to, offer the job or at least asked to interview. And the third one to me was Chris Beard, just because the guy's won everywhere he's been. If he can just stay out of the limelight and stay in a straight path, the guy can flat out coach. So I just want to ask you guys, I know I'm off topic, but what's your thoughts on Coach Beard? And I know the job he's done this year. He's playing with house money at Ole Miss this year. The season they've had is unbelievable. But what's your guys' thoughts on him?
I agree with you. I think he's a hell of a coach, and I think he should have got a shot at the Indiana job. But he's in a good spot with what he's doing here. So I always look at it like you got to give these guys chances. They're all human. They're going to make mistakes. Obviously Chris Beard has a little bit of a past, but at the end of the day, it's like I know he represents your university, but can he coach basketball? I mean, that's what I want. I want a guy who can coach the game. And I think he knows the game very well. And I mean, I would love to have him in Indiana if I were one of the fans there. But I mean, and same thing with Steve Elford. I know I was listening to some of those takes that you mentioned. I know I can't remember who it was, but someone has a beef with him there, and I think that's why they're not hiring him, bringing him back. But I mean, Elford should be a coach who, like you said, the first phone call should go to him. I mean, be an alumni of that school.
Isn't Ole Miss though, guys? When I look at this, and I'm a football guy, so you guys know the X's and O's for basketball a lot better than me. But I always use the example as if like I was a big Dave Clawson guy, as Pags knows. I played for Coach Clawson when I was at Fordham, and he was at Wake for a long time, and just kind of stepped down this past year. But I always said if you can go to a school. And we can use Ole Miss where you get to the NCAA tournament. You can probably stay at Ole Miss as long as you want. Maybe it's a football school. We can probably debate that. Chris Beard would debate that. But, these guys in those other jobs, going to Indiana, going to, the Dukes of the world and those big programs, if you don't win within the first couple years,
Yep.
you're out of there. Right, guys? So I think Ole Miss to me is when I look at this, I say to myself, Chris Beard can coach there for a long time. He's making good money at Ole Miss. He gets to the tournament. He's a hero there. That's kind of the path that I was going down. What do you guys think?
I think you're right about that. I think if he's never going to get canned at Ole Miss, right?
No.
For basketball reasons. Now, if
Right.
some of the away from basketball stuff rears its head, then all bets are off. But it's the kind of thing. The flip side of that, as a coach and as a competitor, Ole Miss is, it's still going to be a football school perception wise. And can you compete for national championship consistently at Ole Miss versus, in Indiana or something like that? So I think that's something that he'll have to, and probably is, and will be wrestling with himself. Does he want to be comfortable at Ole Miss, kind of stay there? And I mean, they're going to be in the mix because he's a great coach,
Mm-hmm.
and he's never going to be under a super whole lot of pressure compared to some other jobs. Or, does he want to go somewhere where he thinks he's, basketball is king and he could win a national title?
Yeah, and Coach, don't you think though a lot of these guys who are in these positions, I mean, obviously they're super competitive. I mean, they all want the biggest job that's out there, the biggest challenge. So I would think, like, I mean, once in a while you're gonna have a guy who settles in and just wants to stay at their school. But when you got the blue bloods out there that are out there, I would imagine a lot of these guys like Chris Beard are gonna want a shot at bringing glory to that big school again.
They said that Mark Pope, and this is, and I'll just kind of echo this and say, me personally, I mean, he's probably making good money. He's in the, I don't know, 2-3 million or more. You go to Indiana where, you got to follow, the history there with Bob Knight. He was on Bob Knight's staff, but it almost reminds me of Coach Cal, which I still think Calipari's a great basketball coach, one of the best, in the game, who they basically wrote him out of Kentucky. And in comes a guy like Mark Pope, who people said last weekend, if Pope didn't get through the weekend, they were calling for his job at Kentucky. So it's like these guys go to the big programs, and I'm with you, Coach P. Like, they go to those big programs where they got all the resources in the world, and it's like, if you don't win right away, they're going to get rid of you. But now with the transfer portal, the NIL, you can flip a roster real fast. And I think that's what Beard's done at Ole Miss, and some of the other guys too. I think in the first couple of years. I mean, again, we're talking Michigan, Dusty May. They were 8-24, and here they are in the Sweet 16 because he flipped that roster. So again, I go back and say to myself, stay at Ole Miss where you're going to be there for 10, 15 years. You're in the Sweet 16 this year. The world of the NIL and the transfer portal, he can potentially build a team here that can get to a Final Four. Can they win a national championship? I don't know. The way the world is today, it's anything's possible. But I think the pressure, right, Harley, the pressure of going to the Dukes, the Indianas. I mean, look at Hubert Davis at North Carolina. They signed him to that long contract, and many people wanted him. I didn't think he'd survive at North Carolina, but I mean, that pressure just mounts on you, right, Coach?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think with Beard, to me, when he took the Ole Miss job, I thought that was the perfect job for him. Like you said, it's, they're not going to fire him because he's too good of a coach. He's not going to lose a ton of games there. He was following, Kermit Davis. I believe who was there. That was Kermit Davis, who struggled for, a few years. So you walk into that job and, Now the SEC, with 14 teams in the tournament, you're starting to see that football money, really starting to make some of those other jobs more valuable, kind of without the pressure. But I think if Beard, in my opinion, I think if it was one more year or maybe 2 more years before Indiana opened, I think some people might have swept it a little bit more under the rug, but it's a little bit too recent to kind of have, that be his first job. But I mean, Beard's one of the old school guys. So I remember some of you guys may have been to the Final Four before, watching him run a practice. And most of those coaches at the Final Four, when they do the open practice for everybody, it's like they're not really going through stuff, right? It's layup lines, it's a couple jump shots, it's messing around. Every time he blows the whistle, the entire team and every manager sprints to him like he's the king of the world, and they're in his face. Everybody's dead silent, like play. So he's kind of like, the reason I say that is because he's kind of one of those the last of the Mohegans type deal, where it's like he does it his way. He's got that Bobby Knight edge to him. I think he was a Bobby Knight manager, I believe, right?
He was.
Or something along those lines. So he's got that, kind of old school, toughness, edginess to him. And then he's navigating the SEC. He's kind of doing it his way with all these talented athletes. I mean, you can't bet against him, obviously with all that money there too. So, he's doing a great job.
Definitely playing with house money. So, guys, let's get into the West. Harley, you mentioned in the beginning of the show, you were talking about Maryland, and I think Florida's a team for me. And again, this is the first year that I'm going to say this, and I'm going to openly admit this. I went chalk this year. Right now, I have 12 out of the 16 teams, and I have all 4 Final Four teams. I put all the 1 seeds in the Final Four, which I never do. But I just thought those 4 teams were better than anybody. And I want to start real fast with Florida first, because Florida proved to me this past, I wanted to see them in a dogfight. I wanted to see them in a dogfight in a really close game to see how they would react. And, I thought UConn really controlled most of that game against Florida. And the kid, I think it was the Clayton kid, right? Walter Clayton had some big shots. And I think they're probably the best team. Duke's got the best player. We can probably agree to that. Maybe we disagree, but I think right now the way Florida's playing after that game, they looked really good against Connecticut, guys.
Yep, I agree. I think Florida is the best team out there. They're so big. I mean, having 3 guys they're that big. That's the biggest challenge, I think, for most people. And I think that the game against UConn. I mean, I think UConn in a way gave that game away a little bit. I mean, they had a lead, and I think because UConn, I just heard it today on the radio, because UConn is the powerhouse that they were trying to put them away. Instead, I think they should have shortened that game a little bit, maybe, and maybe they would have been in a better position to win that game. But I think Florida is so good because they have so much size. I think, and that's going to be tough because as you go through these brackets, there's not a lot of teams that they can defend that. So I think it's going to be a challenge for Maryland for sure. But I think even as they go further down the brackets, it's going to be tough to stop Florida.
Coach P, what do you think? Do you think Maryland can keep this thing close?
Probably not. I think, if you kind of look through tournament history, with very few exceptions, most teams that get through somewhere along the line, they get really tested. And, I thought UConn did that. I thought that was a game. If Florida was going to lose her, prior to like Final Four, I thought that was the game that maybe they could get tripped up going in. And UConn played, with championship pedigree, and I think had every opportunity to win that game. Florida kind of conquered that. Might be the most talented team in the field. I think, between them and Duke, as far as best team in the field. And, I think now that they're through that kind of game, my gut feeling says they'll be clicking on all cylinders. And, if that's the case, they got too much for Maryland.
Harley, how about you? You think any chance Maryland can keep it close? I think Maryland's going to match the size. I think Maryland's front court is pretty good, but I mean, overall talent, no. But if you keep it close, I mean, the final 2-3 minutes, if you're within 10, 6, 8, 10 points, you got a shot. Can they keep it close?
I think they're just going to have to junk it up a little bit. They're going to have to be physical, gritty, and tough, and try to get into some of these guards. I think Walter Clayton, like you guys said, I mean, he's one of the best guards in the tournament, if not the best guard in the tournament left. He can create his own shot. They have so much shooting out there. I mean, Todd Golden put together an unbelievable roster, or the SEC money put together a ton of an unbelievable roster, I guess. Yep. But he runs some great stuff too. So I always enjoy the coaches and all these things. That's where I kind of go back to. But But yeah, no, I think Florida gets this one done. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a double digit, win for them. I just think Florida's going to just overwhelm them. To be honest, I think too much size, too much versatility, and then a great backcourt. They're 2 and 3 men shoot the crap out of the ball with Will. I think Will Richard. I don't remember the other guy's name, but there's another shooter they have as well that really shoots it really well on top of Clayton. Elijah Martin. Those two guys they shoot the ball so well. Again, a big Clayton fan. He was at Iona, back in the day. I remember watching him play coming out of junior college. I think he was at a junior college maybe for 1 year, but he's just so tough. He was a quarterback, so he's kind of got that physical toughness to him too. So I think Maryland will try to make it a again that kind of a rock fight, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it against a well coached Florida team.
All right, $1 million question: was Derek Queen? Did he travel?
I watched the video
under today's day and age, no, but in old school, yes.
Yeah, I watched the guy who comes in on the broadcast talk about it a little bit, and he explained why it wasn't a travel, and I still didn't really agree with him, but I'll take his word for it. The one they usually go to in those takes.
Coach P, was it a travel?
Yeah, I mean, real time, I didn't think so. When they played it back, I can see where you could call it a travel. Referee would have took a lot of stones for a referee to call travel in that situation.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think it was a fascinating, shot. I was all pumped up. I'm like, we haven't seen a buzzer beater, we haven't really seen that, dramatic play. And I always think it's fascinating as a coach. Like, I don't know how you guys watch these games, but like when I watch these games, I love watching these guys coach like the last 2 minutes. Like, again, I'm a Zags homer, but I thought like the last minute of watching Mark Few and Kelvin Sampson go at it and see the different style that Mark Few had to play with the Zags, to just try to get themselves back in the game. Even the way they manage, guy gets 2 fouls out of the gate, what do you do? Some coaches have played guys, some coaches take guys out, but I just always find it the last 2 minutes of these games, how these coaches can draw up these out of bounds plays, the different schemes, the different styles. To me, it's always been fascinating to watch these guys do it.
Yeah, that's where they earn their money, honestly.
Yeah, that is correct. All right, guys. So I want to get into Texas Tech, Arkansas, and some people I keep saying, don't tell me that because Calipari's a 10 seed, they're Cinderella. But I think this is a really good Arkansas team. They're getting healthy at the right time. I think Cal's done a really good job. Many could say this may be his best coaching job. They started the season 0-5, and people were saying, oh, Jesus, first year, he's not going to make the tournament. Here they are playing well, and they run up against a Texas Tech team that's really good too, very similar styles. So I'll kind of go around the horn. Harley, I'll start with you. What's your thoughts on this one? Arkansas is a 5.5-point underdog. Can Arkansas keep this thing close and have a chance to win?
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think this is his best coaching job. He's always kind of had the talent, but he's kind of built this roster a little bit different he's got a few older guys, Janelle Davis, which is a huge, he was coming off the bench before Boogie Flang got hurt, which is crazy to see him come off the bench. But, he's got some experience on this roster too. And I just saw today, they brought back Adu Fierro. He's back. He's back. He's going to be playing this game. So I just think they have so much talent, and they also have experience now too, which, some of those Calipari teams have lacked in the past. So no, I think this is, Calipari is going to get this one done. I definitely have a lot of belief in them in this game. McCaslin's a great coach though. Another guy, there's so many great coaches in this Sweet 16. You saw what he did in North Texas, and they play the right way, and they have, I think, the Topping kid, super talented. They kind of do it by committee, but he's kind of the head of the snake for them. But I just think Arkansas is going to kind of, obviously Texas Tech shoots it much better than St. John's does. I think us four going out in our driveway shoots it better than St. John's does right now. But I think Arkansas is just going to be way too talented for them.
Coach P, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Arkansas wins this game as well. And, I think as long as Cal's at Arkansas, like this landscape of college athletics with the NIL money and the transfer portal, he's a guy that was ahead of the curve back with the, with the one and dones and caught a lot of heat for it and everything. But I think this current landscape of college basketball, I think he's a guy that, it's, to me, it's kind of tailor made for, and he's going to adapt to. And, people better get them now, because I think they're, as long as he's at Arkansas, I think that's a team that's going to be in the mix year after year. in the direction we're heading with college sports. But I'm with Harley. I think they win this one outright.
Yeah, we're talking about coaches, and like I just always go back to all the sports, right? And I say there's coaches that I think are just good fits. Like I look at Cal at Arkansas, and he just looks like a good fit. He looks like he's having fun again, but maybe the weight of the Kentucky faithful and all that pressure over the years to get to the Final Four and win championships. But he looks much different. And listen, coming into this, they had won, I think it was like 12 of 17 or 13 of 18, something crazy like that. But Harley, you mentioned the shooting, and I think all four of us on here could shoot better than what St. John's. And I'm a big Patino guy, but Texas Tech's only shot 25% from the field in their first few games, and there's no way they're going to beat Arkansas shooting 25% from the field. So we'll see if they can shoot it better. But Peg, do you think you're rolling with Arkansas too? You think?
Oh yeah, I think
they get it done?
I don't think this game is going to be. I mean, with having JT Top in there and the other kid on the inside, I think it's Darian Williams. They'll give him a shot, but I think there's too much for Arkansas. And I know you mentioned before there's no Cinderella in this tournament. You can't call a Coach Calipari team a Cinderella, but this is kind of the Cinderella story of the tournament. I think. I mean, we're all kind of cheering for Coach Cal to do his thing. But I agree. Like a Coach Cal team is never a Cinderella, but this is one of those situations where maybe he'll play the Cinderella role for now.
So guys, if we switch over to the East. And I don't know if there's too much. I don't know if many people are really giving Arizona a chance. I mean, Duke's got the best player in the world, and they've looked really good. I think their winning margin over the first two games is the highest, and I think in tournament history they were saying. But any chance that Tommy Lloyd, a former Mark Few assistant, I mean, Coach P, I'll go with you first. Can Arizona keep this thing close, or is this Duke is that good?
I mean, Duke has played like the best team in the country the first couple rounds. I think if they stay close to that level, I don't see Arizona like really staying with them and making it much of a game. We talked a little bit about Florida kind of had their moment where they had to overcome a little bit against UConn. You would think that somewhere along the line that's gonna be Duke. Maybe it's Arizona, but gut feeling tells me that Duke wins big again.
Harley, how about you?
I was a Duke fan growing up, for sure. So I have a little bit of a bias for Duke, but I just think they're going to be too much for Arizona. Caleb Love, he's played great in this tournament. He was unbelievable in their last game. But I just think, Cooper Flagg just overwhelms them. They have enough shooting where they can spread the floor, and you can't focus too much on him as well. I just think this is maybe one of the more complete Duke teams in the last few years. And, maybe this is the upset, the crazy upset everybody's been waiting for, but I think the smart money would be on Duke.
Who's been good for Duke? I mean, they're all good, but I think Proctor's been really good for them, shooting the ball from the arc, defending. I think he's only a junior, but I think he's stepped in too. I agree. I think Duke's been playing the best. I think Florida's probably the best all-around team. Maybe they'll collide. Maybe somebody will knock somebody off, but I mean, Houston's playing really good too. I mean, Calvin Sampson seems to get his teams really close every year. They just can't get over the hump. They're really good defensively. They're good on the boards. So I think it'll be interesting to see who gets through. But I think Duke, unfortunately, I think they keep things going. So let's jump over to one of my favorite teams to watch is I do have BYU. So I got the whole East region right. I had BYU in this game against Alabama, and I'm not a huge Coach Medicis will get on me. I'm not a huge Nate Oates guy. Coach Medicis loves Nate Oates, loves the style that they play. Alabama's got to shoot the ball, I think, really well. I think BYU is going to match up with them. But Pags, I'll start with you first. In this game, can BYU keep it close and have a chance to upset Alabama, or you think Alabama's playing too good right now?
No, I don't think so. I think Alabama is just too fast for BYU. I think BYU can try to slow them down a little bit. But I just think the way Nate Oates runs that offense, how fast they run, I think it's going to be too much for them. I think they'll hang with them for a little bit, but I think they'll pull away pretty quickly. I don't think this game's going to be that close. I like Alabama here.
So BYU plays the same style. I mean, when Mark Pope was there, it was a little bit different, but BYU is going to get up and down too. So this is going to be a really fast game. BYU's got some shooters. I've seen a lot of BYU over the years just from being in the West Coast Conference. So I think this game's going to be a lot closer, I think, than people think. I think BYU could beat Alabama. I think I have Alabama advancing, but I think BYU can beat them. Coach P, what do you think?
I think, this is going to be one of the fun games of this round. I think this could be one of the more entertaining games. I think BYU will hang. I like Alabama to win the game, but I think it's going to be a fun watch. Really, I'm with Medicis. I like Nate Oates as a coach. I have a lot of respect for him, but I think in terms of entertainment value, this could be one of the better games of the weekend.
Harley, what do you think?
So I think the biggest thing with Alabama, is again that experience. Mark Sears, who's been in this moment before, I think is going to be huge. But obviously the tempo and athleticism, that Alabama, puts on the court every time they walk out there is huge. They play at such a fast pace and they have such good athleticism. But I'm gonna take BYU to be an upset, be the Cinderella in this game. I think this tournament needs a Cinderella. I don't necessarily want them to win this game. I love Nate Oates. I love the stuff that he runs. I just love his style of basketball. But I'm going to take BYU as the upset to the Elite Eight and kind of give the world the Cinderella back here.
So the BYU coach who replaces Mark Pope's in the Sweet 16. Pope leaves for Kentucky. He's in the Sweet 16. Cal leaves Kentucky. It goes to Arkansas. He's in the Sweet 16. So, all these coaches did okay. I think it all worked out. So, if I'm the athletic directors, I'm sleeping good at night saying all the moves that we made all panned out. We're all in the Sweet 16. So, it worked out. So, all right, guys, let's just get to these last two, and then we'll get into our picks here. And I won't keep you guys too long tonight. The Midwest, Houston, Purdue. I'm not really sold on Purdue. I know they have the Smith kid who's one of the best point guards in the country. Houston really, really, to me, I think is just so physical. They get on the glass. They can defend you. I think if Houston can knock down shots in this game, I think this is going to be a lopsided game. I'm not really high on Purdue. Harley, do you think Purdue can keep this thing close?
I think it'll be a close game. But obviously they have some depth. They have some depth at the guard spot. But one of the better shooters in the country. His name's slipping my mind right now. The point guard for Purdue. He'll give them a chance. One of the best coach teams in the country. But I've watched Houston. I've only seen Purdue play a few times this year, but I've watched Houston play a ton. Big
Braden
LJ.
Smith?
Yeah, Braden Smith.
Braden Smith. Yep.
Yep. Huge LJ Cryer fan. Juwan Roberts just so tough and physical. They rebound the ball so well. I've enjoyed watching a few clips that I've found just with Houston and how they deal with rebounding in practice and how they just make everything a war and how every possession is a war, and you can see that's how they attack everything. So I think their physicality, their toughness, and then obviously LJ Cryer and Juwan Roberts there. I think Roberts. Those guys are just going to be too much for Purdue in this game.
Coach P, what do you think?
Yeah, I like Houston's toughness. Houston has always been really physical, hard-nosed, built around defense and rebounding. I think the one difference with this Houston team, I think they shoot the ball quite a bit better than Houston teams in the recent past. So, I don't think they're the thing that's bitten them in the tournament in the past is they run into that game or that stretch in a game where they just can't make a shot. And I think this Houston team is better equipped to kind of sustain and maintain offensively. I think for that reason, I think their physicality, I think it's going to be a little bit too much for Purdue to deal with in this one.
I think Purdue's going to have to knock down shots. I'm not sure they really have the rim protection either. So Smith, who's the best point guard, I think the other guy's name was I think it's Trey Kaufman was the other guard for Purdue. They run a lot of high ball screens, so they're going to have to shoot really well. But Coach P, I'm with you. I think this is probably Kelvin Sampson's best shooting team he's had at Houston. So if they can shoot the ball well and defend how physical they are and they get after it on the glass, they're going to be they'll be a tough out. Pags, how about you?
I was just going to say they're so defensively they're so good. I think that's the biggest key for Houston in this game. I think I don't think it's going to be close. I think just Houston is just so good defensively, and as the guy said, they're so tough. So I think I don't see it being a close game.
So guys, this last one, and I didn't know this, that Kentucky beat Tennessee twice.
Yep.
In the regular season, which I think is crazy. I did not know that. And I always pick Tennessee to get to the Final Four because I feel like Rick Barnes' teams are always in that 2 slot, that 2 or 3. They're really good defensively. They play really hard nose. And I feel like when we're talking about these teams, and probably when we get to the Final Four, I'm going to say the same thing. Again, the football guy in me, the football coach says defense wins championships. And I feel like everything we're talking about these teams, we're saying they're really good defensively. They're physical. They rebound the basketball. And I think this is another one where Tennessee's going to get after Kentucky, but I don't know. It's tough to beat a team twice. It's tough to beat a team 3 times. Can Tennessee do it, or Kentucky do it again for a 3rd time, Harley? Can they beat them 3 times?
I think, sometimes in basketball, it's about matchups, right? It's certain teams just don't match up with. It's not so much that Kentucky's so much better than Tennessee, it's more so Kentucky's just a bad matchup for Tennessee. Kentucky had 6 guys that average in double figures. I was just looking at that earlier. Six guys in double figures. Tennessee defends, like crazy. They're physical and tough, and obviously have one of the best coaches in the country, but very guard dominant. I think they're starting backcourt. The Lanier kid, Chaz Lanier and Ziegler, 2 guys that are, as good as any guards in the country. But I just think Kentucky, the way they can spread the floor and the way they play their style of basketball, just presents a lot of problems for Tennessee. I think, like you said, I think I play into that a little bit with beating them 3 times in one season. But like I said, I think the matchup is just not a good matchup for Tennessee.
Coach P, if Tennessee were to get through this, then they got to probably play Houston, which you're going to have to go through Kentucky, who's one of their rivals, and then have to turn around and probably beat Houston. But can they get it done this time?
Well, I'll tell you what, if they do, and you get Tennessee against Houston, like if you really like 2 teams that guard and are physical and tough, like Tennessee might be the best defensive team this side of Houston. So, if that matchup happens, it'll people that like all defense and physical play will really enjoy that game. That said, I think, Harley's spot on with matchups. I think like Kentucky's got a little more balance offensively and kind of tough to take all of that away from them. Like they don't have to lean in one particular place, shoot the ball pretty well. This is a tough game to call. If you held a gun to my head, I'd probably lean to Tennessee, but like to me, this is a pick'em game, and like one of the matchups this weekend that I wouldn't shock me to see it go either way.
Pags, interesting stat line here. 27 times, I'm reading this off my sheet, 27 times in program history, Tennessee has made the NCAA tournament. 10 times they've reached the Sweet 16. Twice they advanced to the Elite 8. Never once have they made a Final Four, which I thought was crazy. As many good teams as, Rick Barnes and Tennessee's had over the years, they haven't been able to get there. Similar, again, to Mark Few, and they said he couldn't get to a Final Four. So, Pags, what's your thoughts? Can Tennessee get it done?
I think that trend continues. I don't think they get it done. I think, like Coach Harley was saying, Chaz Lanier, in the 2 games that they've already played Kentucky, he had his 2 worst games against them. So for them to be able to win, they're going to have to play their best game. But I think play his best game. I mean, he hasn't played well against Kentucky, and I think there's a reason for it. I think that it's matchups. So I do think I think it's one of those games that it's close. I think you can pick either one. But I just think all of those coaches know winning 3 times is hard. But I think Kentucky pulls it off here.
All right, guys, let's have some fun. Let's pick these games, and then we'll have to see what's going on, over the next week or so to break down the Final Four. But let's get these picks in. We'll kind of go around the horn with everybody. Harley, I'll go with you first. We'll go around Coach P, then Pags, and I'll pick it second. So Auburn, Michigan. Michigan is actually +8.5. Harley, who you like?
I'll take Auburn in that game. I think they win by probably 12 or 13.
Coach P?
I'll go with Auburn.
Yeah, I think I'm with you guys. As much as it's funny because I'm a diehard Michigan football guy, but I'm a Gonzaga hoop guy. But I'd like to see this thing close, but I want to see Bruce Pearl keep going. So I'm going to ride with Auburn. I think Auburn's going to cover that 8.5. Pags, what do you think? Who you got?
Yeah, I like Auburn as well here.
And we're all on Auburn. Okay, I like that. All right, how about Michigan State, Ole Miss? Coach P, who you rolling with?
Tough call here. I'll go with Ole Miss.
Oh, okay. Harley, who you got?
Michigan State, going to stick with Izzo in these big moments here.
Pags?
Yeah, I want to go Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss can pull it off, but it's hard not to go to Izzo in March, man. So I'm going Coach Izzo, Michigan State.
There's January, February, and Izzo. So I am going with Coach Izzo in Michigan State here to win this one. All right, so let's go to this one here. We got Florida and Maryland. Maryland 6.5. The spread is for this one. Pags, I'll start with you.
That one's easy. I'll go Florida. No, I don't think Maryland has a chance here.
Harley, you're rolling Florida. I'm thinking we're all
Yeah.
going to roll Florida here.
Yeah, sticking with the Gators for sure in that game.
Coach P?
Yeah, Florida big.
Okay, so I'm on Florida too. I was just trying to think, the gambling guy that I am, when I get on FanDuel later in the week to see if that line moves, if the 6.5 goes up. But I think it's going to be a double digits. I think it's an easy one. I like Florida. All right, so let's go to Texas Tech, Arkansas. This is a weird line. Arkansas is getting 5.5 in this one, and again, they're the 10 seed. Coach P, you're rolling with Coach Cal?
Yeah, I got Arkansas here. I think they get it done.
Harley, how about you?
I think Calipari definitely. I think Arkansas is going to win this one. The spread scares me a little bit because these guys know what they're talking about, but I'm going to stick with Arkansas anyway.
Pags?
Yeah, I like Arkansas too. I want to go Texas Tech, but I don't think he can go against Coach Cal here.
Yeah, I mean, again, Texas Tech shot 25% the first 2 games. I just don't think they're going to be able to shoot like that against Arkansas. I like Coach Cal, and then we're going to say Coach Cal is the Cinderella riding into the Elite Eight, possibly into the Final Four. So I'm going to go Arkansas, and I'm going to take the 5.5 points in that game too. So, all right, Pags, we'll go with you here. We'll go Duke, Arizona plus 8.5. That's a big line too. What do you got, Pags?
Best player in the country. I mean, they got so many bigs there at Duke. I think Duke wins this one easily.
Coach P?
Yeah, Duke, best player, team playing the best. Definitely Duke here.
Harley?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the same thing. I think the Blue Devils definitely win this one.
Any chance though that they keep it within that 8.5, or do I mean, I think it's going to be double digits, but any chance?
I don't think so.
I think it's in like that 12. I think it's in that 12 to 14 point range down the stretch, and everybody's biting their fingernails watching it. Who took Arizona? So
yeah. If it is, it'll be like the backdoor cover where it's like, a 12, 14 point game. They hit a couple shots late and it ends up covering.
Yeah, that's my luck. That always happens when they should just dribble the clock out and a guy heaves one up from like long range and makes a 3, and I'm like, God darn it, I had the over or under on that. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Let's go to BYU, Alabama. Coach P, I'll go with you first. Alabama minus 5.5. Who you like?
Yeah, fun game. I'll take Alabama, but I think it's going to be a fun watch.
Harley, how about you?
I'm taking BYU in that one. I think Alabama, to end their regular season, I think they lost 3 out of their last 5 or 3 out of their last 6 or something like that. And they give up a lot of points. They don't always defend at a high level. So I think BYU, the way they shoot the basketball, it makes it interesting. So I'm going to take them.
Pags?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by the picks on this one. I know BYU runs the same style, but I think Bama's gonna lay it on them, and they're gonna beat them handily. I don't think it's gonna be close. I got Bama here.
Really? I'm going BYU. I think BYU's going to keep them going up tempo. I think they're going to knock down shots. I think they're a little bit lengthier than Alabama at the guard spot. So I'm going to take BYU. I'm going to take them with the points. Now in my bracket, I have Alabama advancing in this game, but my picks on here tonight, I'm going to go with BYU. I'm going to ride with the former West Coast conference team. So, all right, Harley, I'll start with you with this one. Houston, Purdue. Purdue's plus 7.5. Who you like?
I'll take Houston. Calvin Sampson, the way they guard, their toughness and his experience, I think he'll get to the next round.
Coach P?
Houston and take the under.
Houston in the under. Okay. I like that. I didn't see what the under was yet, but I'll be on there later in the week. Pags, how about you?
Yeah, good defensive team. I like Houston here too.
Yeah, I just don't think Purdue's going to make enough shots and rebound the basketball. I like Houston big. I think they cover that 7.5. And I think probably we've talked about this, but I think this might be the game of the week here in the Sweet 16. I think Kentucky, Tennessee is minus 4.5 in this one. Again, we talked Kentucky beat them twice in the regular season. Pags, who you got?
I like Kentucky here. I think this one might be one of the closer games that we'll see. But I think in the end, Kentucky pulls it out.
How about you, Harley?
Kentucky, I think, again, just the matchup is a weird matchup for Tennessee. And, the personnel kind of at this point in the year is the personnel. So I think Kentucky gets it done.
Coach P?
Toughest game to pick this round for me, but like I said when we went around and broke the games down, gun to my head, I'm going with Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tennessee. Harley, you talked about the matchups. And I think there's teams even at like the high school and whatever college level, whatever sport it is, there's just a bad matchup sometimes. And this may be the bad matchup for Tennessee, but part of me thinks that Tennessee's going to get this thing done. And then I really want to see what would it be, Tennessee and Houston, we said, if that matchup were to happen. And man, that would be a physical game. So I'm going to take Tennessee laying the 4.5, but I can't believe that they're laying the 4.5 after Kentucky beat them twice in the regular season. I feel like that line should be the other way. So we'll see. Vegas usually knows best, and that's why I always lose money. So I'm going to ride with Tennessee on this one. So, well, listen, guys, I appreciate you guys taking your time on a Tuesday night. And Harley, I know you had to put your son down. My daughter's still up over here. My wife's going to absolutely kill me that she's still up right now. But Coach P, I appreciate you coming on. I think you were on with us, we were on the radio 10 years. I think you were one of the first guests that we had talking some hoops. So I appreciate you coming on. Pags, good to have you back on.
Yes.
It's been a while since we've had you on, and I don't know what your guys' schedules look like over the next week. But after Sunday, we'll have the Final Four. So if we wanted to do anything and break down the Final Four and do our picks for the national championship, I am always open to do it, guys. So
For sure.
just let me know, and I'll reach out to you guys, and we'll go from there. But I really appreciate you guys tonight.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great. Great to,
No problem,
great to
guys.
talk hoops with you guys.
We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good.
That's good.
So that was awesome to have the coaches back on. It was great to have Coach P back on, and Coach Pasiak was one of the first guys we had on the Mohawk Valley Sportswatch on WKAL 1450. I appreciate him coming on. I hounded him to come on with me here tonight, and he made it happen. And Coach Harley was great this past weekend. Enjoying listening to him, and I appreciate him coming on tonight. And it was good to have Pags back on. We haven't had the Mohawk Valley Sportswatch, the original crew, on in a little while, just because of our kids' schedules with sports and all that. So I appreciate Pags coming on. I appreciate everybody listening here tonight. And hopefully we'll get the guys back. We'll see if they can run things back next week. We'll break down the Final Four. We'll give our national championship picks. We'll see how we did with our picks from this past week. So I appreciate everybody tuning in tonight, and I hope everybody enjoys Thursday through Sunday. I can't wait. We'll all be locked and loaded to watch that. So I appreciate that. So thanks for tuning in tonight, everybody. Have a good rest of the week. Enjoy some March Madness, and thanks for tuning in tonight.